Let's go. Welcome to the Scott Outpost Investigators podcast. I'm your host, Softy Mage, and we got all the co-hosts here of Savadra.
Hello, hello.
Thirsty Blood.
And greetings, everyone.
And that chap from Canada. I haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, life does that to people. Unfortunately.
Oh my god. He has a real life.
I know.
It's good to see you, man.
He's touching.
You're well.
So today we're going to be talking about Shiyu Defense 34, Season 34. Deadly Assault Season 23. We're just going to touch on Wandering Hunter since he is the new boss. And then we're going to go into what I call Zenless Shill 0 as our other topic. So
It's going to be a long one today, gamers.
Yes, it will be.
Take a good seat and listen to our wonderful voices and coughings, right?
Exactly. Sorry, I think all of us have a little cough. So,
I do not.
Well, lucky you, Sev. All right. Season 34. What do you guys thought of Shiyu Defense this week?
Guess I can start.
Yeah. Go for it.
I looked at this and I was kind of like looking at the like early nodes for like for 4 and 5, and I was incredibly caught off guard by by what they did last time with like the Trinox only having or the lower thing only having the lack of third wave, as opposed to, like what they did was put it in a second wave and then just kind of have it there. The enemy felt similarly tanky to last time, where it was like, oh, this guy's kind of tanky, isn't there a third wave? But nope, they're kind of just doing or starting to do like 2 waves at the lower floors now, which not sure how I feel about that quite yet, but otherwise going into the higher floors, I did think I kind of predicted correctly because I didn't look ahead of I didn't look at this ahead of time, but I said in a previous episode that maybe they'll put the Frenzied Maniac and the Trinox in the same floor because they have combo mechanics, and surprise, surprise, they did that this time. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I do enjoy myself the presence of Avarice again. I like him. And Hater, the new Floor 7 second half boss. I haven't played a whole lot, but I don't have an established opinion besides, man, that defense.
Yeah, that's most of what I have to comment on this Shiyu. It's just just from a casual perspective, it's like fine, except that last wave. That last wave is really nasty if you are not giving into the shill buffs, which we'll get a little bit into that later. But just speaking from someone who tried using like literally Zhu Yuan and Ellen on it, it is rough if those are your only characters.
Yeah, that's understandable. I'm actually surprised, Sevadra, you have not mentioned that in this Shiyu, for the first time in a long time, we don't have the wonderful trinity of the shadow enemies.
Oh yeah, you're right. The doppelgangers are gone.
Yeah, the doppelgangers
I didn't even
gone.
notice. I'm gonna be completely real.
I'm surprised because this was one of your biggest points, and this completely went by you. So yeah, we have a Shiyu defense without our trinity, the shadow people here. We got our new stuff. We got a wonderful shield buff, which we will come later to. But in general, like, I did like this Shiyu. It brought a new shape, and especially also since I'm a sucker for variety, I don't even mind the double waves and the change of certain enemies and patterns and defenses. About Shiyu 7, I have tried a thing this time around. I nerfed myself for the first round with agents that basically don't use the Shiyu buff at all. I mean, the only exception would be Hugo and Lycon receiving 15% more ice damage. But other than that, I used only 2 teams, which were Corin, Trigger, Caesar. Yes, I used Caesar again. And as a second team, I used Lycon, Fufu, and Hugo. And up till the end, I cleared everything with S rank, even though stage 7 was actually rather difficult, but it was clearable. I did it under 5 minutes. So I think it was like 4 minutes, 50 seconds, plus minus, something like that. So yeah, a relatively positive impression, apart from the buff this time around. I'm a little bit disappointed there. Softy, what do you think?
I think this was good as Shiyu. I got to use my favorite teams of Vivian, Bernice, and I got to try Idari with her team. It just was fun as trying out at least my favorite Vivian team. And then trying out Idari made it really easy because of the buff. But I feel like this Shiyu is good. The only complaint I have is I liked it when, like a couple Shiyus ago, where the elements really changed, so I had to swap teams around, or I'd make sure I had all the teams or all characters needed. This Shiyu was the same element throughout the whole thing on each side, so I was a little disappointed with that. But that's my only complaint.
I also did try to do a thing with the like not trying to get any benefit from the buff and see what happens. So my teams were to avoid basically everything that I could, regardless of everything. I went anomaly, sort of, as in I went with the classic Jane, Seth, Lucy, or at least tried my best to, and then also hit some pretty funny Crypt Bernice setups with Pulchra and Nicole on floor 5. I hit Sokaku and Nicole on floor 6. And it was no additionals, so that was definitely something. But unfortunately, floor 7 is kind of big in the regards of the tanky. Specifically Hater,
Right.
like the HP and the added defense. I could not get anywhere close to anything with Jane, Seth, Lucy on to Hater, so I basically went up in increments trying to like use premium agents best I could, even up to the point where I had to switch out Seth for Vivian and Lucy for Astra, and then Astra for Yuzuha, and only then did I actually complete it.
Damn.
It was kind of crazy.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, Buffless Gaming, we're vibing, I guess.
True. I mean, that's interesting though, because is Hugo then maybe this strong? Because I was able to sub 2 minutes against Hater. Or does the Hater have anomaly resistance as well? I didn't look into the boss details, honestly.
Hater is Ice Week on top of the buff from the Shiyu thing, giving the 15%. But
True.
I have heard several people using Hugo like still have pitiful totalizes.
I mean, yeah, I think it took me like 4 totalizes and 2 miasma phases. I couldn't go, which was funny. He activated his second miasma phase on my Hugo run. I think I have it recorded. And right when the miasma phase was about to end and he would have been stunned again, he was dead. So I wasn't able to hit the 5th stun, so it was only 4 stuns. And then,
Sorry.
yeah.
For
No.
me, I attempted it with Ellen because she's kind of like my, she's my ice unit. And I needed every bit of support to even get close to clearing it. I ended up having to swap to Evelyn instead because she was just better built than my Ellen is. And even then, I was only able to get like within 2 seconds of not being able to get S rank. Mind you, all of my non-standard banner units are M0, and a lot of them don't have their engines. So that obviously doesn't help, but it gives a better idea of how tanky that final guy is if you're a pretty average gamer.
I also have like a good lot of basically all of my roster is all M0s, and I'm also fairly sigless on a good few things. I did have to use a Vivian's signature over Weeping Gemini just to have the couple extra corruption disorders for like getting the damage there. It was definitely a time.
Yeah, sorry.
Softy, how did you approach Shiyu?
I am a signature person, so I have every one of the signatures. I just got Jafufu Sig, so I got to try that out with her on it, and I was balling at 130, 143, so I probably can't relate to some of you guys on that front. Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. Congrats to the engine for Fufu, by the way.
I will say, when I did a test with Yi Zhuan and my very underbuilt Yadari, it went significantly better.
Obviously.
So.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue in this Shiyu defense is definitely the Shiyu buff. If you don't have Ether Whale, you miss out on 40% crit damage, which is like, why? Why would they hide it in Shiyu specifically? This is like a little bit rough. Ice damage and Ether damage, 15%. I mean, this is like a little extra, but with stage 7, yeah, but with stage 7. As we see how high the HP and the defense is from the bosses, probably doesn't help many people, and you can only use one Lucia. So I'm not sure. This is like a little suboptimal, let's say, to be kind.
Yeah, even if you're not using Lucia with like sheer agents, because even though that's her primary mode of support, she gives the benefit of Ether Veil specifically, like for the claws of giving that crit damage, and it's kind of a lot. It's not the most we've ever seen, but it is definitely a lot. And like, if you just don't have Lucia or Yidari, or you like, don't use them for whatever reason, the difference is felt here significantly more than I think previously.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And boss-wise, I would say the bosses are pretty fine. I like the double pack between Trinox and Frenzied Maniac. They are, I think, they are the best double enemies we have in the game. They are definitely better than Pelicus. They are funny, and they also stick together or try to like get close to you, which makes things definitely easier. I had a lot of fun with them, even with my I played against those two with my Hugo and put Corin on the other side. It took me 1 minute 4 seconds for both of them on stage 6, simply because I was able to stun both of them every single time at the same time, which was just great. It was such a wonderful flow. Sadly, I didn't make a video during this fight. I love this battle a lot. And yeah, how did you guys perceive the double?
It was fun.
Yes.
I really don't have too much to say about it. It was fun. That's my.
I can agree with that. I think it's. I I appreciate that it's much less RNG like dependent, or like kind of less like, you know, scum tactic dependent on than Palicus. Because we haven't had a whole lot of like combo enemies like this one. We've only had like the twin marionettes boss fight, and then Palicus, and now this.
Well, in my opinion, those two are very annoying to actually play against in a timed setting.
Yeah, Palicus is a particularly annoying enemy, as people have known and expressed numerous times at this point. But
Indeed.
as we get to the Trinox and Frenzied Maniac, the dynamic there is that like they feel like they have pretty well synced attacks, but they also like do things in an alternating manner, like almost similar to the twin marionettes. It's been quite some time since I last fought the twin marionette specifically, but like it feels like the things that like the attack strings that they do have are all like really well flowing and like fair, and there's never a like positioning type of thing where like either of them are like really far away for any given reason, or if they are, then like there is the phase where they like disappear for a little bit and like it lets you focus on one of them, but then they come right back in, and every time guaranteed are like back in your like range of aggression. And that's significantly different from Palicus, who is a passive enemy, and Thanatos in general, who's a passive enemy and has the option to hit those ranged attacks. So it just feels like a much nicer fight overall.
And if you get unlucky, they can just sit on the opposite side of the arena. Even if you do the cheese strat of pushing them into the corner, like sometimes the RNG just doesn't line up, and you got one of them sitting across the arena, and you have to restart because you're just not dealing the damage you need to do to actually finish in a reasonable time. So,
true. Yeah. So all in all, they have a really good combo pattern, and one thing that some people might have not read, the additional they have is if one of them dies, the one that survives actually enters the frenzy state, and have probably are a little bit more aggressive. Therefore, other than that, I don't really have much more to say. If you guys don't have much to say as well,
I can elaborate on that a little bit. So when like when you kill one of the duo first, it's kind of the same thing as Palicus, where like the next cute attack is a like kind of mega attack thing, except it's not an invulnerable phase. It's a like it just goes into a frenzy and like is basically it's really upset, angry, and you killed its like friend or whatever. So it'll just like do this big attack string, like Defiler style attack string after the like tidal wave. It'll just do a really long attack string that you can parry many times, and like it's like I don't know, it's pretty cool. It doesn't activate a miasma field or anything like that by itself, because I don't think enemies lower than mini boss tier can activate miasma fields to begin with. It's just a miasmic variant.
I thought it was a miasmic field. Maybe I was mixing them up.
But yeah, in all my runs, I've only ever killed the Trinox slightly early, so I don't know if the attacks are different between the two when they go into frenzy state, as I've only seen the Frenzied Maniac's frenzy state. So that is something I do not know.
I'm not sure on that either. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. I don't think too in depth on this. I only compare it to older fights and how they compare, because it's all relative to each other, right? So
Yeah, they're fun overall. So a pretty good pair, honestly. The best pair, if we go by double enemies, then followed by the twins, and then the worst one is definitely Pedicus.
Yeah, I have no real complaints about them. I really like them as enemies. They feel nice to fight. Well designed, good dynamic, and I appreciate that they're a single wave thing in the Shiyu. I will say though, like this isn't a complaint to them, the enemy itself, but it's a complaint to like the game, like code in general. Double enemies with controller has
Miserable.
can increasingly become a thing that like I'm trying to do too much because I'm used to playing a particular way against solo enemies, and specifically with the camera lock on. Like sometimes the camera will just kind of decide it wants to switch back and forth between both of the things, and I have no freedom of movement, even though I never activate the actual lock-on feature. It just auto locks itself for the enemies, and I'm trying to like rotate the camera and get a different angle and like see what's going on in the environment around me, and then it'll just do a full 180 to the other enemy, and I'm like, what are we doing? I can't see anything. But that's my only real complaint with it, and it's not an actual enemy complaint.
It's a game complaint. It's been a thing since the beginning of Zenless. It's something that I continually say, "Hey, can we get a fix on the camera?" No. Oh, okay.
Undo the manual lock by hitting the RS.
It doesn't work. The way the manual lock on controller, if you brush the camera stick even like a centimeter, it'll immediately 180 to another enemy. There's no sweet spot, or like there's no dead zone, I guess I should say, where like you can bump it a little bit, because if you touch the stick, it will just 180 to the next one, and then you have to relock on to the one you wanted. It doesn't actually lock.
I mean, I play with controller. I had camera issues in the battle tower sometimes when there were many small enemies, but I think I can't remember I had issues with my camera on the Trinox or Frenzied Maniac.
Yeah, I haven't had issues with the camera, so it might be just how I play as well.
Probably. Interesting. I never really realized if there was an issue. Maybe I was too focused on fighting, but I probably would have noticed if it would have caught me off guard. So,
yeah.
I will check it another time.
Yeah. I'll have to mess with the camera a little bit then, because I haven't really had issues with mine, so. Then again,
I spin my camera every time.
3 brutes at one time in tower. That was horrible. Other than that, I think that's the only time I've had horrible camera.
I think the camera flicking was on Isolde. I mentioned once that was a thing, because she's zip-zapping all over the map. That was one of the things where I noticed the camera, how you call it, a camera switch. But she was just one enemy, so it was just like target lock on again on her, but she was on the other side. Yeah, do we have anything more to say about those two? I don't think.
No.
I don't think so.
5 was just an easy pushover. I don't know how much we can say about that.
Now, on the other hand, Hater.
The hater.
Oh, the new one. Yeah, we can go back to Shiyu 7.
Straight over to Big Hater Boy. So, the gimmick with Hater is that they spawn basically like impervious clones, kind of similar to the Notorious Marionette, except that you don't kill the clones or like deal damage to clones in any capacity but they are just entities there to facilitate haters' attacks. They're miasma phantoms is what they are. So it launches phantoms at you and will use those phantoms to basically do its attacks, and this kind of distracts the camera in the same way that the Trinox and like miasma like frenzy maniac thing was swapping back and forth between them. It'll do similar camera things when it does this, some of its longer like phantom summons, because the phantoms are like technically tangible in terms of like being enemies. Like they will like be physical entities that the enemies, or not the enemies, the agents can attack, and like you'll get like, you know, hit lag on them or whatever, but it's not something that contributes to its damage. And so one, that thing exists and holds a similar issue, but most importantly, it's the main motive thing is just sending those attacks. It's a relatively simple enemy otherwise. It has a miasma shield, and the miasma shield is basically you parry onto 3 parry prompts, and the parry prompts are very slow, very spaced between one another. And miasma drains pretty quickly from my experience on Hater, but the major thing about the enemy is that it has the same base defense as Wandering Hunter, which is, if you didn't know, Wandering Hunter has not only a higher base defense while in Miasma Shield, but it also has a higher base defense, period. And we can talk about him later. But Hater is the same way. So it has a higher base defense. It's about a like 60% increase in base defense compared to every other enemy we have gotten up to this point. And so pen ratio is much more valuable against Hater, but also it's definitely a roughest thing of all time, because we knew this was gonna happen. I'm not gonna like put that aside. We were kind of expecting that, because when you ignore defense, what's the thing that's gonna help them the best? Make the defense higher. But
I feel like that leads on pretty nicely to the next topic, doesn't it?
It does, but we can swell a little bit here.
I mean, interestingly, when you think about it, since many people seem to use Hugo on Hater, or like I did it in 4 stuns, this is still pretty passable. Maybe I should try Hugo on pen ratio. This would be an interesting thing. But I mean, Hugo has defense, so it won't be as good.
I think Hugo is a bit of a weird exception, just because he does so much damage that it's...
Yeah, but the defense is still there. You have to think about that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know Ellen struggles really bad.
I have been these days using Ellen built with pen ratio and still using Nicole with the defense down, despite like all the like things people like would say once upon a like old moon about stacking pen ratio on top of defense downs gives you less value for it.
It still works.
It is still true in like mathematical theory, but it is more damage output from my experience than only having one or the other. So especially in this day and age where defense is going to be higher and pen ratio is therefore going to get more value out of shredding through total defense, even if defense downs also scale up with that, like the numerical difference of their actual value has like, it's starting to feel like you want to play those regardless of the setup. So I've been playing Ellen and like a lot of like my pen setups. I've been using Nicole, and I'm imagining a lot of people are using pen ratio when they have like Trigger or Orpheus. as
I
well.
have yet to test this. I feel like Rena stocks are going to be going up a little bit. I think the problem is that Hater is electric resistant. So
Yeah, but the pen ratio is still available. So I think Rena, since she is just a support and doesn't do the most damage, if you use Rena with one of your attack agents, it's still a really good thing. Especially on M1, you get increased pen ratio. And as Salvatore says, I agree. I have a Miyabi built with a disc 5 pen ratio set, and it works. Pen ratio and defense together do work and will get more valuable if the defense of the enemies get really, really high. So it's definitely a thing to build up on in the future. I have started to farm disc sets for fire and pen ratio again, simply due to the fact that there is more defense enemies, so high defense enemies incoming in the future due to the rupture, and it works pretty solid. I have Corin on 32 pen ratio as well now, and I have Bernice on disc 5 pen ratio and pen ratio 2-piece discs. She does more damage than before, and funny enough, she has even more AP than before, and it works pretty well. I went in a second time with, it is a paid team. It's Miyabi, Yuzuha, both M2 with the signature, and Bernice M0 and no signature with the Kissing Lips engine. They ripped through Hater in 1 minute, 1 minute 11 seconds. Mind you, it is M2, two M2s, so really, really strong. But it ripped through Hater. Like, the miasma phase was done easily. Like, yeah, it was a quick fight. It was super fun.
Yeah, those red shreds come in major handy, and also the defense down from Miyabi's M1, also very good.
Nicole proving she's still the GOAT.
Real and true. Free agent, by the way.
Free agent.
If there's ever a lesson from this rupture meta you should take, don't ever underestimate Nicole. She will improve every team.
Yeah. Corin is the S rank of the A rank agents.
Real and true.
But yeah. Oh, by the way, just a little funny, I tried a thing also on the other side against the big blob, Avarus, with my M6 Yatari, since he's ice resistant. Boy, one stun window and like 80 or 90% of his HP was done. 46 seconds it took me. It was quite a funny fight. Just wanted to get that out. Because I have a lot of fun with my Yatari. So yeah.
I would say average M6 moment, but I don't know if that's an M6 moment or if that's a Ether Veil buff moment.
Both, definitely both. It's a whale moment. I just wanted to get this out because I'm happy.
Yeah, for people unaware, Thirsty Blood did pull M6 Yidari. We did mention that at the end of the last episode, but he did do it. It's epic. Yes. I was there. I watched him get everything all good, and it was a great time.
Yeah, a little bit suffering, but it was okay.
I can never do it.
Your 50-50 luck.
Listen. Yidari is something else, but not enough for me to spend that much money.
So I don't advise to spend money, especially so much like I did. This is a one-time thing on my side. I never will do this again, but I had my reasons. I explained them. I'm having fun right now. It is interesting to go against resistances now with an M6 character to see how the performance is going. So yeah. Be ready for some interesting videos from me in the future as well regarding
Incredible.
Anyways, that's it from my side on this part.
We have anything else we want to talk about in Shiyu?
I think we got it. I think we got it all there.
I think we can.
Avara's there, and I mean, we can
Yeah.
quickly mention. I guess we got the Hatties on the 6th frontier, but Araloon, the flower thing, on the 5th thing, and on the 5th floor rather, and nothing really super special going forward from there. So, yeah, pretty simple Shiyu, I think. Buff is definitely a moment, but at least the enemies are pretty solidly balanced outside of floor 7 to compensate for that, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's generally the consensus.
All right. Then let's
think
move on to Deadly Assault and the Wandering Hunter. We're just going to talk about how do you guys like the new boss?
Apart from the music,
that music, please. I need to put on Spotify every time I play again. I have to fight him.
It's cinematic, guys.
I don't care. It's annoying as hell.
It is in theory a good music, a vibe for like 1, 2, 3 times. The thing is, it's ringing in your ears if it's for too long. If you're one of those people who spend like plenty of tries and hours in DA and you have to listen to this music every time, you know what? The Wild West suddenly becomes your friend. Just saying. So
I as much as I say what I said, I do kind of agree. Like, it's thematic, but also like it's very much a thing that I kind of tune to white noise, and sometimes I'm just not in the mood to listen to that type of white noise. So more often than not, as I've been going for recently, I've been grinding a kill on Wandering Hunter, or at least trying to get my first DA kill with Yidhari. It's definitely been a thing of I am listening to my own playlist while playing that boss. But
there's definitely better dreamy music that they could have used.
like, it is cool
for a long
but
time.
I don't think
cool.
that's, I think that's like personal preference thing when it comes to like grinding things. You listen to anything too much and it'll become a thing like that.
Well, for me, like, I'm still pretty casual when it comes to this game, but it's like most of the other boss tracks actually give me something to listen to and are thematic, but this is just like,
well, it's somber.
It is somber, but I kind of wish they did the thing they did in the story where they did the remix of Lucia's theme. I think that would have been much better and still thematic.
Yeah. So I'm usually the type who is really laid back about these things. I adapt pretty quickly to most of the stuff, but sometimes there are things that get under my skin, and this is one of the rare moments where I have to say, when I enter this battle, I think I do 2 or 3 fights with the music, and then I have to stop it. I have to turn the volume to 0. It's ringing in my ears, so I can't do this like for many hours. So this is one of the rare instances where the ZZZ music background music is really not good for a fight, especially if you start grinding.
Not to mention, if you're trying to level up the core skills of Lucia, Yidari, or Monato, you have to fight in the Notorious Hunt against Wandering Hunter, and they still use the noise. So if you're trying to power through all in one go, it's so annoying because how many do you need? It's like
9 per character.
9 per character. So if you have all of them, bare minimum, that's what, 26? No, 24?
27.
27. I'm good at math, I swear. You have to do it 27 times, and that gets annoying. Even if you just do the 3 freebies a week, it's like, that's so annoying.
But yeah, this is just a thing. But I heard it from plenty of people that they don't like the music on the long term, which is a
I'm
thing.
more so change the music just because like when I'm in my situation of grinding for a kill, I just need the like higher energy music overall. Like other like game music will do fine, but like I said, I'm also like pretty tuned to listening to all types of music in all types of situations. But when I'm like hyper laser focused, I am ideally not listening to that song. But that's enough about the music, because that's not the biggest problem with Wandering Hunter. Mr. Man of the Hour, and story spoilers, Lucia's father, who went into the Hollow trying to provide a living for his good, darling Night Watcher child, has the probably worst attack patterns and like general queuing of attacks that I think I've seen of any boss up to this point. And that is also including Unknown Corruption Complex. Because at least Corruption Complex is consistent with its attack timings, even if its attacks are modestly awkward overall. At least the bro is actually doing something, even if it's a little passive and its attacks are slightly longer. The main problem with UCC is the legs. The main problem with Wandering Hunter is a combination of the whole it queues attacks at certain time intervals and also the stage mechanic. So if you haven't read or are unaware, Wandering Hunter, basically, like during the Deadly Assault fight, you will get one stack of a debuff that's called Wavering when you do an assist follow-up or a dodge counter against Wandering Hunter's attacks. You can stack this up to 5 times, and repeated triggers will reset every stack. But it also lasts for 15 seconds. And what it does when you get a stack of the debuff is increases sheer damage. So, number one, if you're not using a Rupture Agent, you don't need to worry about the stage mechanic. But number two, when you are using a Rupture Agent, rather, if you're using Monato, the stage buff is free. Like it's not even a problem at all in the slightest, because Monato, his entire gameplay loop, especially when you get the M6 thing, and also at M2 for out of stun, you can do assist follows pretty much at will. When you're using Yi Xuan or Yidari, that's not the case.
It's different, yeah.
The buff runs out during stun if you like don't specifically enter stun with an assist follow-up or dodge counter to open the stun. And it has made grinding this kill with Yidari really obnoxious, trying to wait for the guy to do an attack only for them to like stand there for 5 seconds when I'm at 98 days and not do an attack, and I'm trying to refresh my wavering stacks, and then I just lose the run because I lost 5 seconds and I don't have enough time to do everything that I want to do. It is really annoying.
Not to mention, I'm like, even if you go around that, I also don't like his miasma phase. I think the shoehorning in of the like the revelation mechanic feels really, really forced.
I can agree with that. I do appreciate though that it's much quicker of a like stall, and like is also kind of dependent on the player this time, as opposed to
I do like that.
Basically an auto scroller.
I do like that. I don't know. It feels really odd for them to just shoehorn that in.
I can agree with that.
Sorry. I was just gonna say it's not as annoying as like an invincible phase like Terror Raptor sometimes does, or something like that, where it's just I can't hit him, I'm losing 10 seconds, yippee.
Yeah. Expanding on that, the Miasma phase, if you haven't played yet, he basically does a hide and seek thing. You have to like find the glowing Lucia, because it's a drowned ideal type thing. If you haven't played the story, you should play the story. It's actually pretty decent. And when you find the right Lucia, then he will do an attack, and you can parry it for an impair. And those two things by themselves are how you get all the performance points. So it is usually not longer than like 2 or 3 seconds of a performance points thing, and then you fight the rest of the Miasma Shield the natural way through, which I like. I'm a fan of. I appreciate that the thing is not too long, but as Chap said, it's like a weird implementation. Kind of makes sense for lore reasons, but also kind of doesn't. In any case, that is kind of how the thing works. The major thing for me is just the like the guy standing still.
Yeah,
It is what it is.
that's plenty people who talked about who said it already. Like Softy, what do you think?
So for the performance points, I had issues when in the story and like when I was not facing him as in Deadly Assault with getting the performance points, or not getting the performance points, getting the timing right for when after I find Lucia and doing the counter. So the defense was a lot easier to or not the performance points was much easier in the Deadly Assault than it was in the story mode.
Yeah, figuring that out for the first time was a little jarring, but it's quick and easy to figure out this time compared to Defiler and Fiend, which took a little bit longer and a fair bit more reading.
Right.
But yeah.
Unfortunately, that life thing I mentioned earlier is catching up. I can only be here for a little bit during the recording. I know all the adoring fans of the single guy from Canada.
I miss Chap from Canada.
That's all right.
Pour
Yeah,
one
I
out.
miss him already. It's like I hear voices of him, but he's touching grass, so he's the most normal one from us.
I know.
Everyone, if you reach this point in the podcast, please type in the comments, I miss Chap from Canada.
Please.
Spam it.
At me on the Discord. At me on the Discord. The Battle Hub, which is where you'll find me.
Incredible.
Let's go.
All right, apologies, guys.
Right.
It's
It's
fine.
okay.
Have a good
Catch you
one.
later.
See you guys.
Thanks for being on. Take it easy.
All right. So, my opinion from the Wandering Hunter is pretty positive, honestly. Apart from one thing where I agree with you, Sevadra, the mechanic of him, where he stands like there for 3, 5, 6 seconds, is sometimes a little bit annoying, especially if you play with Yitari and wait till you can parry another attack.
Yeah.
So this is like I feel that, but the attack pattern itself are pretty solid usually. What you have to watch out, he generates miasma pools, and more than once I noticed that they will interrupt your gameplay or fighting stance if you don't dodge them or anything. So like it can be sometimes a little bit annoying, but I think it is a decent mechanic next to him. But the mechanic for miasma, I like it. It is a quick time event, basically, where you just look for the child and parry it. That's it. Evasive assist doesn't work, so if you use agent with evasive assist, don't. That's the best
Yeah,
thing
that's
I can tell.
that is a funny thing because like the thing on
Even though it
the
says-
description says that you can use defensive or evasive assist, but for some reason, if you just bring a full team of evasive assist agents, I saw this from Leno's guide, it just doesn't prompt you with a golden flash, so you just can't do it.
Indeed. For now, maybe it is a game bug. I think they will fix it.
I hope so.
Yeah. Softy, you wanted to say something?
Nope, I didn't know that. I thought it was weird that it was the evasive assist is not working correctly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In general,
I would believe it's bugged, but I don't know for sure. I just hope they aren't just straight up lying.
yeah, we'll see about that. But other than that, I think I still like it a lot in general. He's a pretty good boss. He's very beefy and tanky, that's for sure.
Yeah, I generally like the boss outside of the standing still thing. The attacks are like, when he does attack, the attacks are very kind of clean feeling, fluid, has a ton of like light attacks because of the stack mechanic being dependent on mostly defensive assists, but also sort of emphasizes more use of like red flashes when you're out of assist points. Because if you didn't know, and this isn't a thing that I think they tell you, but if you didn't know, if you use a swap agent button on a red flash when you're either out of assist points or if it's on an attack that can't be parried for whatever reason, if you use the swap agent button, then it will trigger the agent that you swap in, and it will use their dodge counter automatically. So that works for using other agents to like continue a fluid rotation and get dodge counters for the stacks. So it's really cool and not something I think has been like more majorly thought of or utilized properly before now. I could be wrong, but I think it's a pretty cool dynamic overall. The things with Thirsty Blood mentioning earlier, the things on the ground, when he does his like miasma pool like thing, not his like miasma phase thing, but he has an attack where he kind of throws a bunch of projectiles on the ground in front of him, and they spawn little like mini turret things that have a little laser pointer, and then when they disappear they fire a short projectile at you, and they kind of come at a sort of constant stream for the next few seconds during his next attack or next two attacks, depending on how fast it is. And yeah, the tell for being able to do those dodge counters without having like a prompted attack from the hunter himself is pretty hard. But the like I think the mechanics from most of the agents, at least most of the newer agents that have like kind of self-block mechanics or self-parries, is the main thing that's meant to counteract that. But a lot of older agents don't have that, so it's a time.
I forgot about it. I wanted to mention one thing. You can also grab a little achievement from the Wandering Hunter, and that is in the miasma phase when you have to find the child. There is a wrong child, a certain wrong child also in the pool of you can find, and if you reveal that instead of the right child, you get a little achievement unlocked.
Yeah, you get an achievement for intentionally failing hide and seek, which is pretty funny. But also, if you do that, then bro does a full attack thing that maxes out your miasma corruption or contamination and basically deals team-wide damage and also cannot be damage boosted through in any circumstance. It's basically like the Defilers thing with invulnerability, like things not working. But instead of an insta-kill, it's just team-wide damage because of miasma.
Yeah.
It's pretty silly, but most people aren't failing that in this successful run up to this point. But it does also specifically disable the use of ultimates. So,
Indeed.
But yeah.
I do like that they got rid of the instant kills. At least for Wandering Hunter.
Like, I think the insta kill on Defiler is pretty forgiving. It's still kind of tough with anomaly agents, but I think it's pretty forgiving in the aspect of you are basically forced to save an ultimate for the dagger, or else get owned. But if you have like a little bit more crit leaning stats on, say, whatever support or maybe whatever stunner, if you're using a stunner that you use with your anomaly team, then that's probably the one you want to save over the anomaly ult, just because it will deal more raw damage. And I think that's pretty fair of a consideration to have when the boss is also generally anti-anomaly, but it's still manageable with anomaly. Like, I have, in multiple cases, found ways to kill the thing, kill the dagger with anomaly teams, and it's not felt super unfair.
Yeah. I also tried a few things, and it's not easy. You have to save quite some EXs or use ult, but it does work. There is still ways to do it. It probably would be kinda impossible if you don't have any Shiyu buff. Sorry, not Shiyu, my bad. DA buff. But yeah, there is a way to use Anomaly still. I tried a few things myself. I even tried Anomaly against Hunter, which is fun. Like, Miyabi strikes pretty hard still against the Hunter. And I think Chain works too, but you need to have a really, really, really beefy chain with at least M1 Astra, etc. Or Yuzuha. Like the 40% 40% physical resistance is quite strong. I tried to run it with Corin. We have our Cornson guy. He really managed it to 3-star the Hunter. Like, this is amazing. I tried it as well, and I can only 2-star. I mean, 2-star is still strong against 30%. I tried with the usual Astra and Fufu or Trigger. They were basically on 16k. I tried the Omega wheelchair, M2 Yuzuha, M1 Astra, and Corin. Corin was on 100% since I gave Yuzuha the game ball on 100% crit rate. With 24% pen ratio, and I got my best take was over 17k with that team and 2 stun windows. It is really hard to go through there. I would need better substats to probably get to the 20k, but my discs ain't rolling for that, so I have to be defeated on 2 stars on the Hunter for now. Maybe in the future.
I believe in my goat Corin.
Let's go.
Yeah. Ice and fire weakness and physical resistance. It's a time. Don't use your physical agents unless your name is Corin Zone or you really want to prove your love to your wife.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's basically all for Wandering Hunter, I think.
Yeah. Softy, you have anything else?
No, not really. Like I said, Wandering Hunter, they changed it a little bit for the Deadly Assault, and I like the changes that they did. Just the music.
Yeah, I think many can agree to that one. Oh well. I guess we can hop to the next topic. Is this correct?
Think so. How long have we been going for already?
Hour.
An hour? Alright. Well,
that's fine. We can do it. Alright, then I will introduce us to the next topic. But before that, we will continue it after introducing our today's sponsor, the Hollow Investigator Association, or in short, HIA, who specifically allows us today to visit their new psychological vicinity in Phylum Heights, the Echo Chamber. The Echo Chamber allows you to talk about your regular everyday worries and troubles with their professional educated therapists. But not only that, they even have a new virtual reality system for safe dream diving that allows them to enter your deepest worries hidden beneath your subconsciousness. Within the next 2 weeks, patients will receive the first 2 sessions for half the price if they subscribe through our YouTube channel, Scott Outpost Investigators Podcast. Anyway, since we already have made ourselves comfortable, Sevadra, feel free to start venting. The Echo Chamber is ready to absorb all your negative sound waves.
Thank you, Echo Chamber, for sponsoring this video. So that's cute. I like that. All right. So this next segment is something I've alluded to a little bit over the past few episodes. But today, I am no longer Savadra. Today, my name, you can refer to me in the ranks of the Scott Outpost as Commander Crashout. Okay? Because we have a problem. We have a growing problem. It's becoming a kind of big problem. And the precedents that this problem sets are going to shape the way the game holds for the rest of its life. Welcome to the Pinnacle of Consequences. So, as people may know, I will say it very clearly, but if you haven't picked up on this already, you may have, but I fucking hate Pinnacle as a buff. Pinnacle is the worst buff that has been presented to Zenless Zone Zero in the entirety of Zenless Zone Zero's history. It is the way that things have gone over the past however many cycles in Deadly Assault. So you have 3 buffs. Generally speaking, most of them are pretty generic. They function off of using specific functions, and those specific functions are catered to having benefit for particular agents, because those particular agents, specifically the ones that they use on Banner, are better suited for activating the things in those buffs than others. This is not a new concept. These buffs, as they have been denoted as shill buffs, have been around pretty much since the start of the game. It is just the problem has become, instead of utilizing functions that we are able to use on, say, multiple agents, like, you know, you have every agent has a assist follow-up, a dodge counter, a defensive assist, a basic attack, a special attack, some ultimate. Those are all things that every agent has. They are universal to every agent, and the buffs that they have given, particularly up until the point of introducing Rupture, has been universal to every agent. However, this has changed in recent times. It has sort of changed with the start of Combined Attack or Fiery Assault, and that argument can be made because those attacks those clauses for having 1 or 2 attackers is very particular to team building with the likes of Seed and Orpheus. But Pinnacle and the Ether Veil clause, it has essence of Aftershock, right? What happened was, when Aftershock was introduced as a concept, it came with 3 agents: Sandby, Pulchra, and Trigger. It had essence of, when those were the agents on Banner, there were, I think it was Interrupt and Collapse. It may have only been one of those 2. That were basically like, they had a clause for having or increasing aftershock damage or triggering aftershock does this thing. I don't think the more frequent use of triggering aftershock came in buffs until a lot later when we had a few more aftershock agents. But the point of the matter there is that this also applies to aftershock, and the difference between aftershock and ether veil, as they currently are essentially the same thing. Aftershock is a mechanism used as a move tag for isolating specific agent attacks and using different mechanics therein, but it's been more universal across the entire roster compared to what Ether Veil currently presents itself to be, which is very specifically something that will increase max HP, will give health regen, and exists on 2 agents as of its release, Lucia and Hitari. What this means is that it's exclusive to Rupture, and in the aspects of how this is going to develop further, as we've been seeing with Monato and Yidhari, they're going to be like they're HP drainers that function around using drained HP to kind of sustain their like damage buffs or whatever, right? Who's to say that won't be the case for a future Rupture agent? Because Yi Xuan isn't that. Yi Xuan is a very glorified attacker too. She does not have HP drain mechanics. She only has the Rupture tag and the use of sheer damage, which from a game design perspective doesn't make sense because Yi Xuan did not set the precedent of draining HP. Yi Xuan would have had some amount of integration with Ether Veil if that was going to be the case. So why didn't it happen earlier? And this leads me to my first big, hot, bold take of this rant, that maybe sometime sooner than we may think, Yi Xuan might get a buff that gives her HP drain mechanics so that she can properly utilize Ether Veil, or if they add Ether Veil as a actual move tag to more Rupture agents, or more Rupture specific agents, in the same way that they currently have it on Lucia and Yi Xuan, or not Yi Xuan, Yidhari, they're going to put that on Yi Xuan at some point. What are they going to do with it? The future is unclear, and the prospects of Ether Veil as being a clause in buff mechanics is pure and utter bullshit, and I hate it. There is more to this. The rant is not anywhere close to over, but that is the first big point that I wanted to get through for this. We have a few minutes of downtime to give myself time to not speak and inject opinions from Softy and Thirsty Blood on what I have said for each topic. So take it away, fellas.
Softy, you wanna continue?
So what I want to say is that I agree with the fact that Pinnacle was not made to be with multiple Rupture agents. It is just a quote unquote shill towards the new people on the banner. And I wish Pinnacle was a little more diverse, and it just, I mean, HP only does Rupture, and I guess that's what it's for, but it's still so shilly, so like single targeted of that agent type. I wish they would have included more Rupture agents right when they put out Yi Xuan, but it's just not. Just wish it was better.
Yeah, because it took
Thirsty.
It took literally 3 updates between like 2.0, the start of 2.0, and then, you know, like when Yi Xuan was released. And then it took them 3 updates to introduce even the next like aspect of Rupture. So it like I don't know what they were doing in that downtime besides, obviously making Alice, Seed, Orpheus, and Yuzaha, but like it doesn't seem like it's developing in a very clear direction. But yeah, go ahead, Blood. What are your thoughts?
Well, since I have done a report from the 2.2 update regarding also the Shill buffs, it was already on the lowest score compared to all the other 5 points I have as the Shiyu pillars. If you don't know what I mean with Shiyu pillars, it might be good if you watch the 2.2 report, because there will be also a report for the 2.3 update. And it will definitely also consider a bit of a longer talk about the Shill buffs. And Pinnacle is one of the best examples next to combined attack that are, let's say, that needs to be discussed or like at least mentioned. I mean, combined attack can be still used if you don't have 2 attack agents. But if you miss out on the element as well, then your attack agents in general look a little bit through empty hands. Regarding Pinnacle is definitely a buff that was not the wisest choice by the game devs to implement so early on. They could have done it maybe, I don't know, 2 seasons later, when we have more Rupture agents and more variety to actually use it. But at the beginning, when Pinnacle came in, it was only accessible for Lucia. And this is pretty bold and not really smart to do. It is not because if you don't have Lucia but you have Manato, you can't use Manato with the Pinnacle buff. I mean, you still can use it. You get the 10% sheer damage increase, but that's it. You miss out on all the Ether Whale. With Yitari only enters Ether Whale when she gets her 3000 decibels, which means before that she also doesn't really get the full buff of the Pinnacle. Overall, in the short term, yeah, it's not a good thing. They should have generalized it a little bit more, especially should generalize it in the beginning of something new. Because if it's only meant for 1 or 2 agents and everyone else doesn't profit from anything, it's not really good. It's not a game balance. I know it is there for sell point, but this doesn't look good for you as a seller if you do it like that.
This is very much the type of thing where, if the discussion is going to become about projecting better sales and forcing players to use the agents on banner and like basically force them to spend or do whatever in order to implement use of buffs at all whatsoever, then even though it's only 1 buff right now and the other 2 buffs are still fairly generalist, they're not perfect, and Dream Delusion is just generally a weak buff compared to most of the other anomaly buffs that we have had. It's not going to be a great time when the buffs develop in such a way that this ends up being the case for all 3 buffs. And this moves on into the next point, the hyper exclusivity of these disc and buff clauses, because this applies not just to the buffs, right? And I want to talk about this because like I did think about this while thinking about kind of the consequences of where this action is going. And I came to a realization, like Ether Veil, is there, and like this is kind of the turning point for myself personally where like the problem is way out of hand. The 1 or 2 attackers clause from the previous cycle was also there, and being someone who skipped both Seed and Orpheus, I do not have the capacity to build my teams in a manner that ends up working out great for me for 2 reasons. One, the 1 or 2 attackers clause basically substantiates that you want to use an on-field and an off-field DPS in order to even have that, like, any amount of fluency in that whatsoever. And on top of that, you also need to figure out how to, like, activate their additional abilities if their additional abilities are important, and at least for most free-to-play attackers, that isn't the case, but for most limited attackers, that is very much the case. Their additional abilities are extremely important. But on top of that, the major thing with the 1 or 2 attackers clause is that it has tended to also come with type restriction, as Softy mentioned. So the major thing with Fiery Attack, or Fiery Assault and Combined Attack, is that they both have type restriction for boosting electric damage. And that is just gating another specific thing behind the otherwise generic damage percent that we would get from that typing, because they also have clauses for boosting generic damage bonus, but like for all elements, but they for some reason are going to decide to put it behind, you know, elemental type. And that just limits the amount of agents that can get that benefit while also still conforming to that archetype, like, of team building. You know, you can't really put like Harumasa and Anton on the same team and expect to do really anything, right? Like, if you're going to be reliant on Harumasa to deal your damage, if you're going to be reliant on putting like Sanbi there instead to deal your damage, like Sanbi Harumasa or like anything of the sort, you know, try like, you know, double attacker like Sanbi Evelyn, who's doing anything on field in that team. Like, it's a weird time to think about, because like it's not like what we're used to in team building, and that's not necessarily a bad thing on its own. The problem is the, like, compression of the role that Seed and Orpheus provide that's emphasized by these clauses. But that's not even the worst part of it, right? So, when I was thinking about these things, I had thought about where the development of these things could go in the future. And for where they can possibly go, I came up with 2 denominations. The clauses and the buffs can continue to be hyper exclusive in this regard. But also, there's the class restrictions on disc sets that they've released recently. Since the start of 2.0, we had the King of the Summit set that has a clause that could theoretically work with any agent that puts the disc set on, except that it's also hidden behind when that agent is a stun agent. And then we look a little further, and we see Dawn's Bloom, which has a clause of many basic attacks that you can get a lot of damage bonus out of. And also, by the way, a completely separate thing, but I did also talk about this, completely power creeps the absolute shit out of Polar Metal in every single regard. But also, that disc is also put behind being specifically on an attacker to utilize the full buff. And now we have Moonlight Lullaby as well. I mean, both of those sets came out at the same time, actually. So we now also have Moonlight Lullaby, which is much more useful, but is also set for very specifically to be put on support agents. And when I thought about that, when I thought about looking at what those disc sets meant, and the role exclusion on those disc sets, and how that applies to getting to an anomaly exclusive, defense exclusive, and rupture exclusive disc set. Anomaly's in a fine place. I personally think Anomaly's in a fine place, despite everything about all the commentary they're doing for like Miyabi's ruining the game, and like they're trying to like do things against Miyabi, and it's ruining Anomaly and the Ice class in general. I think that stuff is generally bunk and fearmongering and rage bait. It has truth to it. I'm not going to say it's an outright lie, but I think it's overly exaggerated, the effect that it is having. Because the deeper problem is that the devs have the ability to basically change, like, they've always had the ability to change what the meta, like, would be at will, right? And part of the adaptation process of playing this game is that you are expected to adapt your build or adapt like your teams by rolling the new disc sets or pull different agents. Whether or not I agree with that business practice, that is the general way to live the longest in this game. Survival of the fittest, right? You adapt or die. What this opens up the possibility for, though, is since they've already expressed that they can put up stuff like class-specific discs and agent-specific clauses, they can then also choose to put that type of stuff in, say, stage mechanics, like anomaly damage nerfs, or attacker damage nerfs, or something like they buff only anomaly damage. And if you see where I'm going with this, this is a thing that has been sprinkled out through the past 4 bosses that we've gotten in Deadly Assault as well, with Miasma Priest, Miasmic Fiend, the Defiler, and now Wandering Hunter. And when you have a whole combination of that type of stuff, when they all come to fruition at the same time, when it's gonna eventually get to a point where the buff, the boss, and the disc set that you use are all going to determine what your success rate is for any given thing in any amount of endgame. And this is why, like, 2-piece pen ratio is becoming more valuable, because defense is rising. The base defense of Wandering Hunter and Hater are rising. And who's to say that's not going to continue to be the case for the next boss that we get, for the next elite enemy that we get, in the next patch, the patch after, all the way through the end of the season. Whatever the next Void Hunter is going to be, is most likely going to emphasize this type of thing. So that's the second part of this rant basically over, is that the exclusivity of these clauses in the buffs, the stage mechanics, and the discs are going to trend in a very bad direction if left unchecked. What do you guys think?
I'll start with the discs, and then I'll go to the double attack, as I alluded to last episode, the previous episode on this. The disc sets, if they did not exclusively say support, or they did say attack, some of them like would be used on other agents, and it would be actually nice to try something new on those other agents. But I feel like they would have increased anomalies sometimes too if they would have actually allowed for those non-exclusive buffs to fruition. Because I think the basic attack one, if it was not attack specific, it would have actually helped anomaly even more as well. If that's the same for the support buff, if they did that non-exclusive, Jufufu second stunner would have actually utilized that better as well. So I'm not going to disagree that yes, they shouldn't be exclusive, but it does limit the fact that you have to use older discs to use some of the agents how you want to play. So I'm sort of glad that they allowed that. They didn't knock out what the previous disc sets are. It's just that I do agree they are a little bit too exclusive with those disc buffs. As for double attackers, I want to point out that the Cunning Hares did a video on Billy, Nekomata, and Astra, and the Nekomata was level 1, and he was able to clear with over 20k, or just barely making 20k. And when he tried any other team, that it just would not work. He could not get the 20k. So it was sad that the double attacker 60% increased crit damage is a definitely noticeable difference. And if they continue to do stuff like that, where they limit team building as that way, yeah, it's gonna get not as fun.
Is that on Defiler? Real quick question. What boss was that Cunning Hair's clear on? So I didn't see that.
I think it was Defiler.
I assume Defiler.
I couldn't remember. Yeah. I think it was Defiler.
Logically, it should be Defiler, yeah. Makes sense for attacker.
Because he had to switch. He had to always switch to Nekomata in order to do the defensive assist for the third part, so yeah.
It's a lot to unpack, honestly, and it's definitely a thing we as players feel and can also give feedback back to the developers. The buff case is surely something that needs to be improved. General buffs are generally better compared to shield buffs. And if you want to use a shield buff, there are some solutions we can give the game devs. Like, for instance, in Fresh Head Simulation, we get 4 buffs to select. What we can do is give like 3 general buffs for each class and 1 specific buff for the shield agent. With that, people can still take the shield buff if they receive the new agent and knock out extra damage to have extra fun because numbers speak. And the rest of the cast is still able to play the game for a good time. Like, if you have like, for instance, if you start with the game a little bit and don't have the best agents, and then you see the buffs and you have agents that don't really follow the buffs, it will get hard. On the other hand, if you're a new player and you have gotten Lucia and Hitari, for instance, then you will have an easy time with the Pinnacle buff. So it is actually an advantage for those kind of players. But yeah, in general, buffs should be more generalized, and if you give a little tweak here and there, for instance, for Rupture agents, it is okay if you say the first part is Rupture specific, but make the second part maybe a little bit more generalized, even in your own class. Because Pinnacle was on a point where it did support the class, but at the same time it didn't, because Manado couldn't use it if there was no Lucia in team. About the combined attack, the first part is totally fine, we can leave it like that, but then don't put the electric damage in there, because this was definitely a shield for the new improved Zanbi and of course Seed, but also Orphe. No, sorry, not Orphe, but Seed. Yeah. It's not really optimal to have these implemented. Regarding the disc sets, I have to say for now it is a pretty wild take. I don't speak for the future, but for now. Simply because we have to see it from this perspective. In our current game, we have plenty of general disc sets from the first season. Even with Astra's disc set, if you get defense, if you get assists, English, you get the buff of Astral Voice, and there's plenty of agents who can use that one here. We have Protopunk for the defense assists, we have Swing Chess for chain attacks, and many more that are generalized and general disc set buffs, and they are really good. Like Even the pen discs are very solid. If we say we use the 4-piece pen discs, it will strengthen your ultimates. We had those all the time. But the 2-piece effect is a generalized thing. So for now, it is okay if it is class specific. That way you're kind of lead into the way, of course, to maybe get it or not. But it opens up new ways because specific things usually tend to have a little bit more extra oomph compared to the generalized disc sets. But for now, it is okay. For the future, we don't know. I think saying that the discs are an issue is pretty far-fetched since we have plenty of generalized options. This is like my first opinion and take. Maybe after some more discussion, maybe I will change my mind. But for now, disc sets is not really an issue, in my opinion.
Yeah, that I didn't present the point as like disc sets are as nearly as big of an issue as the buffs and like what they're doing with the buffs as they currently are. But
yeah,
the dynamic to consider like for the future, yeah, it can like go in either direction, and I'm just worried because like I guess as long as they keep up doing specific things like with Yunquei Tales being Yishuan's best in slot disc set, it's like still usable on Monoto, but Monoto doesn't utilize it very well, so it has bad uptime for him out of stun. Unless you have like a support Mindscape that lets you do chain attacks more often, like Yuzuha. But it's like a really good and I think best in slot disc set currently for Yidhari, so like that's still good. And for the anomaly agents and like Phaethon's Melody, despite being very particular to Vivian and having like the ether damage clause, like it is still a fantastic 2-piece for every anomaly agent. And I have used Phaethon's Melody as a 4-piece set on the likes of like Piper and like Yanagi at one point or another. It's like the clauses outside of like the type restriction are still very good, and like it's a very solid like disc set for that reason, whereas like you have basically no freedom of creativity for like for Dawn's Bloom, Moonlight Lullaby, or King of the Summit. Like those are just set for the agents that they're set for, and that's never going to change. So if they come out with even newer disc sets that either replace that or like force those buffs to be slightly bigger, then like I don't know, it could be a problem in the future. Like who's to say for sure? My main concern is the buffs and the exclusivity clauses as a whole, and like it's just an observation of seeing where that pattern either has come from or has remained in the duration that we've seen it. Which now transitions to the third topic. What
Can I
happened?
say something in between first, before I forget it? Is it okay?
Go ahead.
There's one thing I just want to mention as well. And this is probably one of the things we can compare with Sanbi as well. Some things take time until we receive more of it. Like, for instance, with the Aftershock mechanic was at the beginning exclusively for Sanbi alone and Pulchra, and that was it. And now we have plenty of it. And the same is with, for instance, the disc set Yunquei Summit. More and more agents will, especially on the Rapture category, will probably be able to use the 4-piece set. We just need a few more patches and more agents. And the same thing goes with certain specialized buffs. I'm not talking about Pinnacle. Pinnacle is a little bit too extreme, but in the future we might get more agents that will have an advantage with the current buffs that are only applicable for 1 or 2 agents. So it's also a matter of time thing. If something is implemented for the first time, it is to be expected to be more exclusive. But if we wait a little bit longer, in most cases in ZZZ history, the issue faded into the background because more and more possibilities were opened up throughout the new patches. But yeah, this is a future thing we have to talk about, and it is a valid current point, of course. It is a valid worry, and it's definitely feedback worthy. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Something I want to like emphasize before I move on to the next point is that I did the Commander crash out bit at the start for like a bit of comedic effect, but while like these are like my genuine concerns, this is like not meant to be like particularly doom posty. Like I'm not like shitting on the game for the sake of shitting on the game. I'm actually doing this entirely out of love for the game. I am just making observations and like making discussion points on like where the trend is going, because this isn't something that I intentionally engage with often, simply because like as the game develops, like the game is going to develop in whatever direction it wants to, and I like will still very much be here for like the point of the mechanics and playing the game for the original reasons I played the game, which were love of the mechanics and the animations. Like that isn't going to change, hopefully. But like in terms of like we talk about the end game stuff, and I figure if we talk about the end game stuff, these things are like relative points, or rather relevant points that like is going to be on the forefront of most people's minds as Rupture continues to develop, and like maybe Aetherveil will turn up in some way to be useful for other archetype agents. Who's to say for sure? I don't see how that can happen currently, but if it turns out to be a second case of Aftershock, then I'm honestly completely fine with it, because I am fine with Aftershock, mostly because it has the flexibility to develop, and it has shown that it has the flexibility to develop and has done so in most aspects so far. It's just I'm concerned with Aetherveil mostly because of the facets of it being particularly exclusive to Rupture, but I guess when you get more Rupture, that's not going to be as big of a problem. In any case, Chapter 3. What happened to general buffs? So, this should not come as a surprise to basically anyone, but shill buffs exist. I mentioned this at the start of the rant, that they've been around for pretty much the entirety of the game's lifespan. The like problem with the newer generic buffs compared to the older generic buffs is that the buff efficacy has gone down significantly. And there's a difference in the axes of buff usability versus efficacy. Buff usability is the stuff that I just talked about in the past 2 points, with all the like exclusive clauses and the basically gating specific parts of the buff behind all of the all of the exclusive things with Aetherveil and specific team combinations and all that stuff. Generally speaking, if a buff has a clause that features something that every agent can use, then I'm perfectly okay with it. Like even the anomaly buffs, I'll be so real. Most of every other agent in the game can make use of those, because every agent applies anomaly. Just some of them do it slower than others. The main thing is just how much benefit do you get from having a specific anomaly clause on a buff like that. But that's like also goes into the difference in that and buff efficacy is like the type of stat that you end up getting from those types of clauses. So like as a example on what I was just talking about, think about something like Dreamed Illusion for like this cycle where it's like defense down and some anomaly buff or anomaly damage buff, it's like that's not really usable for really anyone but anomaly, and I mean that's the way it's intended to be. But you go back to something like Graceful Mastery. I saw, and I did a long time ago, a Deadly Assault challenge where I tried to clear Deadly Assault at that current point in time. This was season 7 or 8 or something like that, so way far back. And I'm due to do a new one soon. But I basically had that cycle where I could clear with 18 individual agents while not sharing any gear at all whatsoever. And the major thing was I used Graceful Mastery on quite a few attack teams, despite Graceful Mastery being an anomaly specific buff. And that was on purpose. It proved more effective for being usable on specific teams where like the other alternative was Rapid Aid, and I forget what the third one was at that point, but like there were just some situations where Rapid Aid was slightly worse than Graceful Mastery because Graceful Mastery was decibels upon applying an anomaly. And like getting an extra ult just from applying anomaly enough with an attacker was enough to make the difference. And that was also like in the era of, pre-buff Ellen and all that other stuff. Like that's the time period isn't super relevant, but like that's just an example of like where the difference comes from. What is worth talking about in relation to the past though is where this general like the like expression of specific shill buffs could have like been felt harder than others, right? Like I think we can all agree that despite Rapid Aid being the Astra shill buff, Astra is an agent that was designed in such a way that Rapid Aid was also constructed to be usable for every other support in the game. And it's great because there are agents like Sokaku, commonly looked upon throughout Zenless' entire history as the worst support in the game, on top of Lucy, who has really good energy regen. And those two supports were able to make the best use out of Rapid Aid to the other supports in Rena and Nicole at the time. Like the difference in the usability of those buffs back then, despite being an Astra shill and still following the immediate period of the Miyabi shill, was so much better. It was also worth pointing out that that is near the start of Deadly Assault's lifetime. So perhaps it was a situation of getting their feet off the ground and figuring out what's what. And I have consistently said that the problem of like all the HP inflation and like the change in the buffs, all that, has basically been them accounting for the decibel change since back then, and trying to get a solidified standing ground of like power, right? Because the addition of several ultimates completely changed the power ceiling of every team and skyrocketed their power balance to everything way beyond probably what they projected at the time, because that's part of the skill expression of this game. But in doing that, what has happened is slowly over time, the buffs became more particular. The efficacy has been going down and down ever so slightly, and the usability has also been going down at a much more noticeable pace. And where can we say this started, right? I looked at buffs in the past cycles, and the things that I had my eye on were Blazing Chill, which was in Season 8. Season 8 of Deadly Assault. And that one was a fire and ice specific I don't think it was an anomaly buff. It was a... Actually, I can look real quick. But it was a fire and ice specific like buff of some kind. Look very quickly. Here we go. Yeah, well, it was anomaly buildup. I'm bad. But yeah.
Okay.
Fire anomaly buildup and ice anomaly buildup rate increased by 20% and attack increases by 25%. But the the second clause is still attribute anomaly. It restores decibels and gives anomaly proficiency. So the efficacy of that buff is you're losing out on fire anomaly buildup and ice anomaly buildup if you're not using those two agent elements, but you're still just getting an unconditional 25% attack, and you get 400 decibels every time you trigger anomaly. Like, that's still really good, but you could consider that that is a situation of like being a bit of a shill for, let's say, Miyabi and Bernice. Look at that compared to Season 10, which had Transformation Charge, which is Ether Anomaly buildup and Physical Anomaly buildup is increased by 25%, and Anomaly Proficiency generally by 60 points. This makes it more usable for Anomaly in general, but is not specific for like every attacker at this point. It's just a good Anomaly buff. Then, when triggering an attribute anomaly, defense is reduced by 10, and the damage they receive from attribute anomalies will be increased by 30%. So, as we look at this, the efficacy has gone down. The specifics of you have two elements that you can use for this buff do not change, but the unconditional bonus that was given changed from attack percent to anomaly proficiency. The conditional bonus of triggering attribute anomaly giving a bonus went from giving decibels to decreasing defense. And also changed from being the anomaly proficiency to dealing more anomaly damage. So, as it's very clear in comparing the two, Blazing Chill and Transformation Charge, you can use one of them for non-anomaly agents and still do really well with it. I actually think it was a really good buff back then. But you can use Transformation Charge, and it doesn't do as well for non-anomaly teams. I imagine the same thing would be the case for like Rupture, but that's not the important part. The next part after that is Illusory Surge, which I need to look for a little bit because I didn't write down which season this one was in for some reason. But did see Illusory Surge somewhere here. Where are you? Are you in season 9 maybe? Nope. Although Metamorphosis does also exist. That was Fire Anomaly and Ether Anomaly, and then AP for 80, and then the same thing, kind of as Transformation Charge with defense and anomaly damage, but like it was the same amount of efficacy as Transformation Charge. Where's Illusory Surge? Here we are. Illusory Surge is directly comparable to Transformation Charge. It's the same amount of ether and physical buildup. It's exactly the same anomaly proficiency. And then it does 15% of damage of defense ignore, and also increases generic damage percent compared to anomaly damage. So that's slightly different. It's better in terms of the numbers, but again, that's part of the reason I attribute their looking of these things have changed and we need to figure out basically what is the power that we want to give to these buffs to make things kind of balance out. And that's in season 15, for the record. And then we go forward, and the first time that I really, really heard people complain about this, like beyond, meditation and the inclusion of like Yixuan and all of her different mechanics, like that one was kind of an obvious one, with the efficacy basically being not there for anyone but Yixuan because she functioned off of HP. But the ultimate energy and adrenaline generation rates thing were still very broadly usable. It's just like not good. But the first time I really heard people complain about this was season 18 with Artful. That's not season 18. Why did I write down season 18? What do you mean? Where are you? Is it 17? It's 17. Okay. Yeah. First time that I heard people really talk about this to an extensive degree was Artful in season 17, which is specifically damage per se increases by 20, physical damage increases by 20, and then when inflicting anomaly, defense decreases by 10, and when inflicting disorder, defense further decreases by 25. This buff is pretty usable for in the same regard that the old buffs like the like Blazing Chill and Graceful Mastery kind of are. Like they're not as good. The efficacy has gone down a lot at this point, and the focus has been put on defense a lot more. So using it on non-anomaly specific teams gets you a lot less than just a short extra burst of damage compared to decibels. But this buff specifically is fully utilizable by exactly one agent and is 90% utilizable by exactly 2 agents. And every other anomaly agent like that is not able to trigger disorders on command and is essentially focused on getting disorder cycles instead can use this buff because the uptime is not terrible, but it's still at the point of like the efficacy has gone down a lot. But in any case, like this buff is fully utilizable only by Alice, and then if you remove the physical damage portion, the rest of the buff is still usable entirely by Yanagi. So as we have come down from looking at the buffs over time, you can see that the pattern has trended in a way that you can use the specific assigned buff from like, a specific class, like on a broad variety of the roster. You could use these types of buffs and like still do completely fine, and the buffs were also just actually usable for those off classes compared to what's happening right now. Like, we can get into a situation where not only is the buff not usable for anyone else except for one agent, but as a result, this is probably the closest that we have been and will be, maybe, to just the ability to play completely buffless gaming. Like, and I want to be clear, right? These are like, this is just the rate of which the shilling has gone up over time. But, like, endgame, as it currently stands, is still clearable without using these shill buffs, right? I, like, the entirety of, like, Season 2, I've gotten 9 stars, and I have only pulled, like, 4 of the banner agents out of... We're currently at 8 right now? Yeah. Yeah, I've only pulled 4 out of the 8 agents, which is still quite a bit. But like I have cleared intentionally without using those agents as a manner of like testing to see how shilly the buffs are, and I've been able to manage it every time. I worry for how much longer this will end up being the case, because in this cycle specifically, or rather in this patch specifically for the entirety of 2.3, I've set out to do all anomaly clears, and like Dream Delusion is not a terribly bad buff when you consider that it's better than no buff at all. And that's what could happen with the next cycle, which we'll also talk about as the last point of discussion. But like,
I'm gonna say
there's like the chance that
why don't we
we'll
save that
for
next?
a little bit. I was gonna
Like
kind of give you all the floor in a little bit, but like, yeah, it's we're getting to a point where the kind of classes are very much being heavily restricted to like stay in their lane, which is, I feel, not what Zenless was when I started playing it, because the emphasis was on the variety in the combat and the team building, and like if the buffs and the end game is going to basically enforce that you either you build properly and you don't really get creative with your teams or whatever you can do, then it loses a lot of that charm for me. But that's like a major part of the point, was that like the buff efficacy on or the buff usability rather on like the creative side of using non-correct quote unquote buffs on other classes has gone down significantly over time, and it is continuing to go down to a point where eventually we're going to get to you are forced to use this specific buff or perhaps this specific agent, or else you will perish. What do we think?
Sorry to cough. So I miss the general buffs and like be more like for everybody, as I really want to just say. Even the Miyabi buffs were more general sense to Anomaly, and that was a good thing. It wasn't just maybe everybody thought it was Anomaly Zone 0 because of that, but it still was nice that they did that more generically. For the generic buffs that they have in general for attacks, I miss those, because the double attack was the worst of the regular buffs, or for the attack buffs, and I'm hoping they go back to something more similar to that, or similar to they had before with just having a general buff, which I hear they are going to. And yeah, I'm hoping that Rupture does not have, or will have more of a general buff compared to what it currently has now. Thirsty?
Yeah, so there some things take time or come with in due time. There are probably some things that will be changed or improved in the future. Definitely, one of the solutions that the devs could do, since we currently are only able to select 3 buffs. Imagine if we have one general buff for each class. If this starts to happen in the future, since we now have basically 3 attack classes that includes Rupture, Anomaly, and Attack. If all 3 attack classes receive a general buff, or let's say most general buff and maybe one specific buff for one of the shills, that would be, I think that would be a pretty solid solution for the current problem we have with the exclusivity with buffs like Pinnacle or Combined Attack that basically buff only the Ruptures with Ether Whale or the Double Attacker. If this would be one of the solutions the devs could make, and take into consideration for the future, then the whole issue we have right now would fade away. Other than that, yeah, we will have to see. We will have to apply those worries in the feedback forms we will receive soon for the end of patch 2.3. Don't forget that it is always important to remember that the devs for now still listen to the feedback in the formula we receive. It includes how you feel about the game difficulty, about the HP, about the events, of course, but also about some endgame topics. And you have an end part where you can type in all the issues you have with the endgame. The more objective and less, let's say, aggressive it is, the more profitable it will be for the evaluation of those people who have to read through it. This is the only thing I can say for now. Sevadra covered basically everything anyways. These worries we have now are pretty valid in my opinion as well, because since we don't know what will happen in the future most of the time, it is definitely a thing that is worthy to talk about, discuss about, and hopefully it will reach a certain audience. Some people will be here since we are talking about these issues. And we can only wait for the future, do our part with giving the info further to the game devs and hope for the best for our game. I still love ZZZ as it is right now. And the future for ZZZ, I honestly can't wait because I still trust in the devs, even when they do some mistakes or, let's say, have to do or maybe do some decisions that aren't really that looking good. But the game difficulty for now is not on a point where there is a class of people who simply can't play the game. We haven't reached that one yet, and as long as this is not the point that we go into, I won't also stop spending. For instance, like I will stop spending if ZZZ decides to do stupid stuff, and when this happens, then the game definitely doesn't look too good anymore, because I myself am pretty critical usually on those takes. But yeah, I think this is a good summary for all this.
Yeah. Like a lot of the stuff in like my last point was kind of sparsely talked about throughout the entirety of this segment, and like, so I'm not gonna delve too hard into all of that, so we can wrap this up, because it's been a long one, as I warned y'all it would be, and I just had a lot of stuff I wanted to say because I am very passionate about enjoying the things that I enjoy, and when Zenless Zone Zero is the thing that I enjoy, I'm going to be passionate about it, and I wanted to use this as a opportunity to get my own thoughts sorted out and maybe get more people thinking about it that aren't already like, hey, this is all like HP inflation stuff is like, you know, all the drama's stupid, and like community drama takes in general are not my thing. I did everything I could do to look at this problem from an objective and completely like factual point of view in terms of like what the observations are, and like even provide some alternatives as like solutions, or just generally speaking what the concerns themselves actually are. I think I don't know if you noticed, but at no point in the entirety of this rant did I mention anything about HP inflation, because I don't think HP inflation is the problem. It's really not. Like, the HP can continue to increase, but if the buff efficacy also continues to increase, then that just offsets the HP inflation. It's not an issue in the slightest. If the buff efficacy goes down, then the HP inflation is noticed, but that should not be the point where it's noticed and talked about. the critical part is looking at all of the things that we've been presented with and seeing from a perspective of the ability to create and be creative with your teams, with your account, with a wide roster that all pose several different things and axes and diversity of play in the video game's Endless Zone Zero. All of these things need to be taken into consideration at the same time. It's not just one aspect of a problem. It's all of them at the same time coming together to create these concerns. And if nobody has watched, or if someone like watching here hasn't watched like Kete's video on HP inflation from last patch, where he essentially says the same thing, I highly advise you do so, because it is a very good video. It sums all of the concerns that I have had for most of this rant, just focusing on kind of the buff aspect of it, because I don't think it's talked about enough, the direction that these things are going. But like Thirsty said, we have to wait and see, and I am still putting faith in the game. I will continue to play as long as I continue to find it fun to play. What will not be fun to play is if we eventually do reach that point where the buffs are so crazily shilled out and exclusive to having the banner agent or perish that the buffs are simply not usable for anyone else on the roster and essentially invalidates the aspect of team building that we've had up to this point, the diversity in combat. I love this game. I don't want that to happen. So yeah, that's going to be the end of Commander Crash Out segment for today. Thank you, Softy, for allowing me to do this.
And also thank you for the HIA and the echo chamber to allow us to use the room for Sevadra, who was now able to vent all his worries out.
It was great. I was almost convinced that was an actual GAD read. It was crazy. I love that.
Well, we said we will implement it in the future, and I thought, like, before we forget, I will do it for today. It was the best thing for the day to implement. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good. Look out for more of those in the future.
Oh, I hope. It's fun.
But yeah,
Well,
we can go.
let's wrap it up here. But before we go, we're just going to say the next DA bosses are going to be Wandering Hunter again, the Anonymous Typhoon Destroyer, and then Miasma Priest. So expect 2 Ruptures and an attack-focused compositions for next week. And we will come in talking about why we might not agree with that sort of play pattern. But that'll be next time.
Indeed.
So, Sevadra, where can we find you?
I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Sevadra. I've recently been going on a kill grind for Wandering Hunter in this current DA cycle, despite the fact that I have a burning hatred for Pinnacle. I was sponsored Yitari and her engine, and by God, I'm going to do everything I can to make my sponsor proud and try to get the kill. And that's what I've been getting to. I have gotten a 59k as of moments before this recording started. But I mostly stream on Twitch, and if I get the run, then you will see it on my YouTube at youtube.com/absevadra.
Thirsty Blood, where can we find you?
I am on YouTube as Random Blood Gaming, and I do videos of some different kinds. I have a plan to upload more fight videos again, but there's also a work in progress about what I mentioned earlier, the report update for ZZZ Endgame 2.3, from which I got quite plenty of help from a few people. but also have done polls in our Discord server regarding certain topics of ZZZ and how they felt. One of those issues which was mostly present in everything in two servers was the shield buff topic, so it is definitely a thing most people are concerned about. And yeah, you will hear in like the shortly before the end of the ZZZ 2.3 version, you will see an updated report and see how the game balance is actually on. And with that, I also can be found in, as you know, in Discord servers, the Battle Hub, my own private server, in Senpai's server, and also in all the other CCC content creator servers like KTALG. I'm just a little lurker there. Yeah, this is where you can find me. Softy, where can we find you?
You can now exclusively find me on YouTube. I sort of switched from Twitch to see how that goes. And at Softy Mage, and I am also a moderator on the Battle Hub Discord, and you probably find me on all our Discords as well as a lurker as well. So, and with that, we're gonna sign out here. Take care, guys.
Take it easy.
It was a pleasure. See you around.